Smackdown. There were only two things I cared about. Guys, I'm going to make this clear. There was stuff in here, many people are going to say, oh, it's going to be interesting. No. I'm telling you right now, there was only two things I cared about. And one of them happened during the show. The other one was this. There was just one until what happened. And that was Bobby. I'm not even going to hide that. Bobby getting hurt was the only thing I cared about. And what happened to the Usos. That was it. Nothing here I cared about. And I know there's going to be people going to say, dude, come on. The show wasn't that bad. It's not the point of being bad. It was about caring. Guys, the major thing this show was supposed to produce was a tournament that leads to the Night of Champions, and it was trash. Not the matches themselves, just how they implemented the tournament. Nothing bad about the wrestling itself, other than what happened to Bobby. But when you look at it, what did you really get? You got a condensed show that was like Raw. Condensed. Yeah, there was a few extra things there, and I will get to them, but why do I care? Opening the fake semi-final match for SmackDown, which had Edge, Ray, and AJ Styles. It was not that the match was bad. It was okay. The match was fine. I kind of thought that Ray might actually get it. I didn't expect him to go with AJ. I did not. But there was one point during the match, right before AJ won, where if you saw the match and that you saw Ray and he climbed to the top turnbuckle and he jumped and it looks like he was going to grab Edge's back and do something with it. He literally didn't grab Edge's back. He literally splatted off of his back and hit the floor when Edge was trying to grab him. I do not know what happened there. That was a huge botch. That made no sense. Edge did not grab him out of the air. Literally, Ray was supposed to do something. He might have not jumped high enough. And legitimately, he landed on Edge's back with his chest and head. And then he landed flat on his back. I don't know what happened there, but something went wrong. But in the end, AJ won it. And I wasn't looking to see that Edge was going to win. I didn't expect Edge to be there. I did think that AJ wouldn't be there. I really thought because they've been pushing Ray so much, maybe he would. And it was not a bad showing for Ray. Ray was the one that was the most spotlighted there more than AJ, who just came back. But they chose AJ. I didn't have a problem with it. I was surprised that AJ got it. But I don't want to see a damn triple threat for something that should be stretched out for 2 weeks. This pissed me off because it was a short-ass match. And then, what did we get? Less than a minute or so later, instead of breaking it up in halfway into the show, and they couldn't because they only got a 2-hour show instead of 3, you get Sheamus versus Bobby versus Austin Fury for the second spot in the semifinals. It literally was one, then right after the other. There was nothing in between to break it up. They chose not to break it up because this show was nothing. Because you see this match. It was a good match between Sheamus and Bobby. And, Austin made the mistake when Bobby rolled out outside the ring. Well, fell outside the ring when he rolled out. And Austin decided he wanted to nail him into the steel steps. But instead of taking him and doing it like they sometimes do and use the left shoulder instead of going into the right, because it's dangerous. You can hit the steps wrong or you can hit the post wrong. It looks like when Bobby was thrown into it, his head got cut somewhere from either the skirt itself, or it could have been the steps. I think it might have been the ring skirt, and there might have been some metal there. Because I don't think it was the steps itself. I think it might have been when he went straight in, and I might use that as a thumbnail. When you see his bloody head, the thumbnail when he got smashed into the ring step itself, I think there might have been some metal exposed underneath the skirt, the nylon skirt they used to cover up the ring. And that was it. He was done. He was just bleeding his head off. And for WWE's credit, they didn't make everything black and white. They didn't. It was regular blood, but what Vince decided to do, because it was Vince, I'm sure it had to be Vince. If Triple H was running it, then fine, it was Triple H. They decided to do this. Make the angle as far back as possible so no one was looking at it close up. But it was seen like this once he did the pin. That the cameraman did zoom in quickly, but then probably was told to zoom back out. That was it. That got me concerned because that was not a nice cut. You could see he was really bleeding and the cut was probably this wide on his head. Where my finger is, like this wide, that's how deep the cut was. And I will tell you, when you see how big the lump on his head was, it was a big one. But that's just me. Now, the match I did not care about. Damage Control versus Raquel and I didn't care. Did I believe Raquel was going to lose? Did I believe Liv was going to lose? No. There was no point in them losing because Damage Control is an afterthought. They're trying to break up, from what I can tell, Damage Control and separate Io Sarai away from Dakota and Bayley. That's the way it looks because they keep teasing it. And in this situation, when Bayley told Io, go and grab something and have Dakota distract the ref, she tries to grab a title. Didn't work because Raquel grabbed it away from her. And then Bayley shoved her off the ring skirt where she was to try and hand her the title. And she splats on the floor and they lose their shot again. This is what we got. Do I care? No. I don't care. Yes, we did see the NXT Tag Champions of Alba Fire and Isla Dawn watching the match, but what does that mean? This is where it gets confusing. What are they going to do with Alba and Isla? What are they going to do with them? Are they going to let them go up against Liv as well as Raquel to unify the titles? If they actually do, it would really help for Raw, SmackDown, and NXT because they have one set of titles and those champions can go to all the brands. But do I believe that's going to happen? No. I don't believe they're going to unify the titles. I'll be shocked if they do. You're just going to have Isla Dawn and Alba Fire drop them back to NXT when they go back maybe this Tuesday and next Tuesday. It's hard to tell what they're going to do. Maybe they'll do it by Battleground, which I've decided that I watch Battleground the next day because understand this, guys. I just found out the schedule we're going to have. Friday's Under Siege, the 26th. Saturday will be Night of Champions. Sunday will be, I believe, Double or Nothing. So the only way I'm going to do Battleground is on Monday. That means I will maybe I'll skip Raw, counting if I can see it early. And that will be Battleground. I'm going to see if I can see it early so there won't be any problem. But I'm going to be seeing one Impact Plus show, one pay-per-view, another pay-per-view, and then another one after that. That's 4 shows I'm going to be watching and reviewing. That's a lot. So look for it. Unless something happens and lightning strikes my butt, I should be watching. I hope I don't. But you get my point. Didn't care. Now, the only thing I truly cared about... Oh, and Grayson Waller is going to get... You know what? Yeah, Grayson Waller is going to get an interview with AJ. We already know AJ won. We know. But he's going to get an interview with AJ because he made a request to Adam Pearce. There you go. I'm going to say it now. The second thing I cared about was the Bloodline. That was the main thing I cared about until Bobby actually got hurt. So Bloodline comes out, and it's literally, I believe, right after the Baron Corbin and Cameron Grimes match, which I missed it. I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, it was already over. Literally, it was in between the match, and it looks like Cameron was doing all right. My guess is Cameron won. I'll be surprised if Baron won. I believe Cameron would win, and I do believe he did win. But right after that is when we got the Bloodline. And pretty much when we got the Bloodline, I'm like, okay, how are they going to do this? What are we going to get? Are we going to get the Usos getting nailed by Solo or not? So we got acknowledge me from a Roman Reigns, and we get the recognition from Roman Reigns saying that we did good in WrestleMania. We're the only ones who headlined WrestleMania both times in the same WrestleMania. That was him and the Usos. They both headlined them, and nobody else can take that from them. They're the first one to do it. They have the same family. That's what they got. That's what he talked about. But he said someone had to be acknowledged, and it was Solo. Solo got the job done no matter what job you gave him. He was proud of him. And when the crowd was cheering for Sammy as well as a Kevin Owens, because he'd bring up, what about Kevin and Sammy? And he said to Roman, he said, don't worry, that's not your problem. That he's pretty much saying, Solo, my cousin, my boy, that's not your problem. They're not the problem. The problem is right over there. And he points at Usos. And Usos and Roman was pissed a little bit. Made it very clear. What will you think you're doing? You think I wouldn't notice? You think I wouldn't notice that you lost and then you tried to get the titles back again, begging for it, and then you dedicated to me? Really? When our own family have tag teams, you didn't dedicate it to them. You dedicated to me. I am not a tag team competitor. I am a singles competitor. He did mess up once where he said, I am, when he was with Solo, that one of the longest. No, he said he is the longest. And he made it clear, I am the longest reigning champion in history. I'm one of the best. I'm the best. And you're trying to honor me? And you still lost? Really? Apologize. But you would think that he was going to make Jay apologize. No. He tried to get Jimmy to apologize. Because if I remember correctly, Jimmy was the one, I think, that wanted to do dedication. So he's forcing Jimmy to say sorry to him. But Jimmy didn't really think of it. He started joking around with it and smiling, as Jimmy always do. And he's saying, what, you think this is a joke? You think this is a joke? He shoves Jimmy in the face, which, as Roman said, when Samoa Joe was on the roster when he first came in, if I remember correctly, years ago when he faced Samoa Joe, where they could have made it interesting, a rival Samoan family. Yes, his family doesn't do wrestling, it's just him. But he's from another Samoan family. And instead of making it interesting, saying, oh, Samoa Joe, you're another Samoan from another family, huh? What, you think your family's going to be better than mine just because you're it? You're the only one. They didn't set that up, and it made it like garbage. But Roman did say something interesting. He did say at one point, oh, you know, you trying to mess with me, you got that Samoan blood boiling, baby. That's what he said at Samoa Joe at one point. And you could see Jimmy showing that boil. Because the minute he got pie-faced by Roman, he started boiling. And he wanted to take out Roman, but it was Jay who said, we're sorry. We're sorry. Give us another chance, and we will bring the bloodline, the tag titles. But Roman had another idea. Instead of doing option one, where to break the Usos' faces with Samoan Spike from Solo Sikoa, he decided to do option B, which was to tell both of them through a Paul Heyman, that at Night of Champions there will be a match for the undisputed tag team titles. And it was Roman Reigns that said it will be Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns. He basically excluded them from it. It was like ostracizing his cousins. He made it very clear. They're done. And he said it clearly. And when we win it, me and Solo, we are dedicating it to the Wild Samoans. That was a jab at them both. Because if Roman's going to dedicate it to the Wild Samoans, when the Usos should have done it, that's got to piss them off. And that also led into a match that's going to be for next week, where it's going to be the Usos versus Rey and Santos Escobar. Because later that night, they interact with them and piss off the Usos. And we got the final match. Now, I could have ended it there, but I just wanted to say this. Bobby had a big-ass knot. It was like this far up. You see this knuckle right here? You see that knuckle? That is how high it was from his head. It was that bad. If I put it into the thumbnail, because I'm not adding any images here, it may be in the thumbnail. Damn it, that was a big-ass knot. And it was not sutured up. They did not suture up the knot. It was still bleeding, and the knot was maybe having a cut this wide. Think about Don Callis and his. I think it was at least this wide on his head. But Bobby was a trooper. And he kept working. He kept doing the best he could. But that knot must have been hurting, man. It must have not been fun, particularly with it bleeding still. And to the WWE's credit, they did not make it black and white. They still showed it, but they made sure, like I said earlier, they pulled back on the cameras as much as they could, not to get really close up, so they can keep it as far as possible so you could see there was some type of blood, but you didn't see how bad it was. I will say that. Whether that was a Triple H decision, which I think it was, because Vince would probably make it black and white, it doesn't really matter. Bobby did not win. It was AJ. So it's AJ versus Seth going into Night of Champions. But I'm going to be honest here. And I know there are going to be people who say, wait a minute, what about what happened to Bianca Belair and Asuka? Why don't you talk about that? Asuka sprayed her in the face. Guys, I'm going to be honest here. Do I care about Asuka now? No. She should have won. Asuka should have won. Asuka, who really should have been pushed and allowed to win the title, did not. They let Bianca. So what do I feel about Asuka? Absolutely nothing. Asuka was joking around, but then became serious and then did this, and then did the spraying of the face of Bianca Belair. And a big one too. She spit a lot in her face. I'm not interested. Because I don't believe they're going to let Bianca drop the damn title. If they were, she should have already dropped it. And the kicker for me is that this was Knoxville, Tennessee. This was her hometown. And it was supposed to be a celebration. Instead of letting her have this celebration, they could have done this at any time before the celebration or after the celebration. Literally. They could have done it any other time. I'm not saying pretty much they already had the match. They could have done it any time afterward. They did not need to have her get sprayed like that on the show. I'm sorry. If you liked it, fine. But I think in this situation, she didn't need to have the spray. They could have waited until next Friday to do it. Because then she could wait for the next challenger. You could see that Asuka came out to shake her and then do it like that. Being there in a celebration of being the longest running champion in the modern era, but then you get a sprayed in the face. It sounds like a great idea for the next going into the feud like of Night of Champions, but it's going to counter what they're going to do Night of Champions. Let's be honest. They're going to give Asuka another shot at Night of Champions, unless they're going to do it beforehand, which they got 2 weeks of content to fill instead of doing the damn... Instead of doing the tournament for the next 2 weeks and filling in time, what do they do now? Are they going to have Bianca go up against Asuka next week and the week before of Night of Champions so Asuka could have something to do? Because when it comes down to it, for her to do this like this, they're trying to set up either for Night of Champions or before Night of Champions. And I don't expect Asuka to win. I don't. If they make Asuka win, what was the point of her losing a Backlash if they're going to make her win at Jeddah? Honestly, it's a joke. A joke. And then Bianca in a hometown in a celebration because she's the longest women's champion in the modern era, probably the 2000s, 2010s. Why do that? I think it wasn't necessary. I don't know about everybody else. For me personally, this is just not a great setup. But this is just me, and I hope you enjoy this SmackDown review. Please give me a comment below. Oh, there's going to be a long next 2 weeks. I'm going to enjoy myself because I got 4 reviews to do on the 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th. Woo! Peace.